Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's a privilege to follow such an impressive speech from the member opposite. I'm sure his constituents will be incredibly impressed at his knowledge of this particular issue. I also want to be not just kind to him, but also to the Secretary of State. Once again, this is becoming a habit that I want to break, but certainly his sincerity today cannot be doubted. And if there's one person who could probably be afforded the executive powers within this bill with an element of trust, it is probably himself. However, there are some topics that haven't been touched upon in a huge amount of detail today. I will touch upon them very briefly now, whether that's tariffs, whether that's competition, whether that's in relation to energy prices. We need to not forget the fundamentals of why there is such a challenging position facing the steel industry. But there's also one other hugely important issue which has not been discussed at any length in this chamber today, and notwithstanding the future contribution I imagine from the member for Alloa and Grangemouth, it's something which isn't going to pass the lips of any other members in this House, which is of course the situation in Grangemouth. And I say the situation in Grangemouth with an element of despair, because we all know that there are hundreds of people who are on the brink of losing their jobs. And the similarities are astounding. We have PetroChina on one hand, and we have a Chinese company in Scunthorpe in the other. We have a Chinese company in Scunthorpe saying that there's losses of around £700,000. We have a Chinese company at Grangemouth saying losses of around £500,000. We have a cracker in Grangemouth which has been deemed not to be useful anymore, and we of course have blast furnaces in Scunthorpe which are categorised in the same manner. All of us need to be conscious of those comparisons. And I say that on the basis that whilst the Secretary of State is right to say that this is important for jobs in Scunthorpe, this is right for the communities in Scunthorpe, and this is right for Westminster's national UK-wide interest, is it not the case that is important to the workers in Grangemouth? Is it not the case that it is important to the communities in Grangemouth? And is it not the case that it is in Scotland's national interest that Grangemouth is protected? I'm afraid I'm not going to give way, because we know that we are all constrained for time, in the same way that members opposite will not be taking interventions going forward either. The answer that is put forward earlier by the Secretary of State to myself was that £200 million through the National Wealth Fund has been put forward. But each and every one of us knows that that is not within the gift of the Prime Minister nor the Secretary of State to dictate, and it's ultimately going to be reliant upon the private sector coming forward with a proposal. Indeed, evidence which was given to us at the Scottish Affairs Committee just last week from EY, who've done the Project Willow report, were quite clear in their observations at the fact that ultimately there's going to be no progress by 2030 at the earliest. That is simply not good enough, because whilst the government mobilises every effort to save British steel, it allows Grangemouth to fall on the back burner. And the honourable member for Ayrshire earlier, Mr Deputy Speaker, referenced the fact of industrial strategies. Well, of course, what he seems to forget in that context is that energy is a reserved matter for this United Kingdom government, something which the Secretary of State is all too familiar with, given our previous roles in this here House. So the final thought that I will leave with members opposite is to remember the fact that the bill that they are supporting here today extends itself solely to England and to Wales. We on these benches, actually, Plaid Cymru are correcting me to clarify the fact that it is only England. So the important consideration is, why is this not being extended to Scotland? Why is Grangemouth not being included? Why is the smelter up at Lochaber not being included? Why are the DL steelworks not being included. The answer why they are not being included is because Westminster is only interested in Westminster. It is not interested in Scotland, and I will not be shouted down by the members opposite because they need to hear the truth. Scotland's interests matter, and the people of Scotland are watching.